Becoming a successful professional speaker is a journey. How do you find that first stage, the next stage, and then the bigger and better stages? I'm Lee Hayes, your host. My co-hosts and I are here to guide you to a more successful speaking career. You're listening to Path to the Main Stage podcast.
Welcome back to another Path to the Main Stage podcast. Today is the day. Today is the one you want to listen to. This is the icing on the cake. This is what all the speakers are always asking about. And that is, how do I write the speech of a lifetime? How do I up-level my keynote? What do I say? How do I say it? A lot of these podcasts are about your business. You know, Lee is all about business and all the aspects that go behind the curtain. But today, my co-host is all about on the stage and how you're going to be the most amazing speaker you can be. So, John Bates is the founder of Executive Speaking Success. He has helped thousands of professional speakers get on TED stages, TEDx stages, write the speech of a lifetime. He's also worked with executives at Johnson & Johnson, NASA, Boston Scientific, Google. Like, his resume would take the whole hour. But I have him here for you today. So we're going to walk through the steps. That's what I want from you, John. We're going to walk through the steps of helping these emerging speakers get to the next level. And emerging might be they've never been on stage before. And they might be what we talked about a little bit before we get on, which was, how do you go from a $25,000 stage to a $50,000 stage?
Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you. Hi.
Hi. I'm super glad to be here.
Well, I am super glad to have you. So let's just dig in. Let's talk a little bit about you to understand who are some of the people you've worked with and what have you done for them? And then we'll get into the how.
Okay. Well, so I just feel like I maybe owe it to people to admit that back in 2010, I got invited to speak at the TED conference. I was on a side stage and I blew it. It was awful. And the long story short is that was just massively more fuel to the fire for me to understand what it really was. Because I went in there a good speaker, totally competent, but I blew that. And I got that there was something different about TED. And then TED permeated everything. And all of a sudden, everybody just wanted you to give a TED-like talk. And Keynote started pulling in more of those TED elements and all that. So I would, that just put the fire under my butt even more to figure out what made TED Talk so special. And that's kind of what got me into what I'm doing now. And since then, I've worked with people like Dolph Lundgren. If you haven't seen his TEDx talk, it is an absolute must watch. It's really, really good. And then I worked with Dave Carroll, whom you know. He has one of the most important viral videos of all time, says Google. And it's hilarious, right? If you haven't seen
United Breaks Guitars, right?
Go watch it.
Yep.
And then I work with Mike Michalowicz, who I think is really one of the best speakers I've ever worked with in my life. And, and I'm working with a guy right now who is in the Hall of Fame multiple times with NSA. And he saw me working at an event and listened to me for a little while and came up to me afterwards. And he said, John, I don't care what it costs, but I want to work with you because I need to take my $25,000 keynote into a $50,000 keynote. And I think you're the guy that could do it. So we're in the process of doing that right now. And, I've worked with another guy named Ian Rivers who rode across the Atlantic, and he speaks all over now at the, what's it called? The Explorers Club, and speaks for organizations and companies. And then I've done a lot of work at organizations too. Like General Electric came to me and asked me to train all the speakers for their Global Aviation Summit. And So a lot of other things like that too, where there's a lot on the line. It's a little different than a keynote, but very similar in terms of impact.
Absolutely. And I think the one thing I want to start with here, my belief is you need training, right? If you want a professional speaker, you need training. How many speakers have come to me and gone, but Lee, I'm comfortable on stage.
Yeah, that does.
I'm comfortable on stage. I'm not a speaker at all. I don't care. You need training. I've seen so many poor speakers, right, that think they're amazing. I went up there and I gave it everything.
Yeah.
But there was no order to it. There was no thought process to it. You're not as good as you think you are. You can always be better.
Okay, so I'm gonna dump on myself first, but then I really have to unload here for a minute. So I remember going to TED for the first time and just being floored at how great those speeches were. And I realized, oh my gosh, like my ability as a speaker is actually really a powerful ability, which I really never got before. But in the moment that I realized that, I also got really clear that even though I had been the best speaker at all those tech conferences where I had been speaking for years and years and gotten so much accolades and everything, dude, they were tech conferences. Like, it's easy to be the best speaker at one of those things. Like, I was nowhere near as good as I could be, right? And I'll tell you what drives me absolutely banana apeshit is these people who have done amazing things that easily command $50,000 to walk into a room and give their speech because of all the amazing things they've done. And then they give a freaking totally mediocre or crappy speech. And then everybody applauds them because of the stuff they've done in their life. And they think it's because of their speech. That drives me insane.
Well, good. You've come to the right podcast then. I appreciate that you're here because speakers need to be better. And a lot of what I talk about on this podcast is there are so many speakers out there, right? This is the lowest bar to entry, highest paid business you could possibly be in.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Right? Isn't it? You don't need to be certified, trained. Like there's no bar to entry at all. You can just say I'm a speaker. But because of that, everyone thinks they can do it.
Right.
So all these people come in and you just need to get just above that noise. And then you can really be successful, but you have to step over it.
You have to. And, there's two things that I would say to anybody, but particularly somebody who's coming in kind of new. You and I both know Michael Port, and he wrote a book called Referable Speaker. And I'm going to boil it down for you. The bottom line is that and this is something that I had known, and then I was so glad to see somebody I respected say it so I could go, oh, quote him. But the people that are super successful in the speaking industry don't usually have a whole bunch of speeches, and they don't do a new speech for every audience. They have one speech that is so good that every time they give it, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people come up afterwards and say, will you give that exact same speech to my audience? They need to hear it, right? And so as a beginning speaker, if you go out there and you're just kind of winging it and floating around and it's not all that great and whatever, you are actively damaging your referral business. Right. And if you are somebody who has done something amazing and your speech is mediocre, well, guess what? I'm working with somebody who did something very similar to what you did, and their speech is kick ass. Right. Who's going to, yeah, right.
To the next stage.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I feel like we've been able to air the idea.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for letting me, because look, and I'm not pointing only at other people. This was me for forever. I thought I was so good and I was not.
Yeah. 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 No, it's true. And one day I hope to have if Michael Port, if you're listening, and you're probably not, I need to call you one day. I want to have him on my podcast.
Yeah.
So he's going to give the other part, which is the stage presence.
Right.
All right. But I want to start picking your brains today, John. I want people to leave with all this knowledge. So let's say we'll start working on me. I'm not a speaker. I've never been on a stage. What is the first thing? I want to be a speaker. Where do I start? Do I just write something and start from there? Do I look for case studies? Like, where do I even start? Before I start working with somebody like you, what do I need to do first to just get started writing my first keynote?
Okay. So, I mean, look, everybody's speaker journey is different and there are all kinds of different ways into this. But I think that one salient answer to your question, Lee, is to tell you something that most people don't realize, that especially speakers. Typically, and you can tell me whether you agree with this or not, but typically people don't want to hire speakers. They want to hire experts who speak about their expertise.
Wow. I'm sorry. Can you say that again? Because that was beautiful.
Okay, good. So typically people don't want to hire speakers. They want to hire experts who speak about their expertise.
All right, just found the headline for the podcast. Beautiful. Okay.
So, what are you an expert in? Right. And it may be that you are the absolute number one expert in import, export, trade, whatever. Great. Then let's talk about that, because that's probably what people want to hear about. Maybe you're an expert in resilience because you lived through a horrific motorcycle accident and made an amazing comeback. Whatever your expertise is, whatever that thing is that you have that you could share with others that would actually really make a difference for them. And then to build on that, but to hone it into the TED lens, which I don't, great, go give a TEDx, but don't wait for TED, right? Like, yes, great, go get a TEDx. I can tell you about that. That's a good idea, but don't wait for TED to create your TED-worthy idea and go give it anywhere, right? But we can use things from TED. So the number one piece of coaching from TED comes in the form of a question at this stage. What is your one idea worth spreading?
Yeah.
So that would be where I would say you should start, Lee. Out of all the things you've been through, out of everything your expertise in this, your experience in that, what you learned growing up, the things you love, the things you don't love, what's your one idea worth spreading that would make the biggest difference for the audience you want to reach?
And I feel, tell me if I'm right or wrong, that idea it can't be vanilla. I was just talking with a speaker yesterday who said, Lee, I talk about transformative leadership. And I went, okay.
Great.
She goes, transformative leadership. I go,
yeah.
What does that mean?
Right. And I'm not laughing, right? Like, transformative leadership is awesome. It's just, that's not the lead in. Yeah.
That's not the idea. Right. That's not the idea we're spreading. That is the theme.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it has to be very specific and it has to be unique.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are a few things to think about on that. The first one is, like, yes, everybody's talking about transformational leadership, right? I do is actually not speaker coaching. I genuinely think what I do is transformational leadership communications coaching and training. And one of the side effects is that people become stellar on stage, but it goes much deeper than that. Okay, but so what? What's the thing that I'm going to share that's going to be that differentiator among a sea of transformational everything, right?
Right. And what you do, right, is you help people write the speech of their lives.
Yeah.
That's not, everyone's not saying that, but that is transformational leadership, is that level of communication, right? The speech of your life.
Yes.
So that's your thing. And I think every speaker, I feel, when they start out, can't just go, I'm a leadership speaker. They have to come up with their thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's the place that I often start with people, Lee. In fact, almost always is, Okay, you do transformational leadership, let's say. Let's go into your origin story. Where did this come from? Right? Why do you care about this? You could be doing anything. Why are you doing what you're doing now? And I'm of the belief that when people get really clear on that origin story and on that golden thread that goes all the way back to their childhood about why they're interested in what they're interested in, that story, when you choose it well and you craft it well and you tell it well, that is I think, your most important tool, right? Especially if we're starting here and we've got to figure out what it's going to be about. Okay, let's dig into where you came from and why you care about what you care about.
All right. So we need to think about our origin story. Is an origin story something that's going to wind up in their keynote? Maybe not in everybody's, but is that something that's often there? The why I'm an expert at this, or why it is my.
That is definitely something that ends up in people's keynotes a lot when they work with me. And the reason that I do that is because I believe a well-chosen, well-crafted, well-told origin story, and a lot of people have their origin story, they're already telling it, but there's a way to craft it, and there are certain things that need to be in there. And when you do it well, you establish not your credibility, that's already established. You're on stage, like they asked you to speak, right? You establish your emotional credibility. And I like to do that very early on in a really deep way, because then for the whole rest of the talk, people are listening to you in a whole new way and feel much more connected to you. And you've established your emotional credibility, so they trust you.
I'm taking notes. It's my own podcast and I'm taking notes. Emotional credibility.
Perfect. Yeah, I let a little TM, a fake TM on that. Yeah. So quote me, please.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're going to look for the origin story. What's next? And I'm just going to keep you walking through this whole thing.
Okay. So
what's the next step?
Well, so there's a document that I created a while ago that I think is pretty helpful. So I'm going to just call it up on my computer and kind of step through it a little bit. But the bottom line is that you've got, so your origin story, and that mixes in with your one idea we're spreading, right? So once you've kind of got an idea of this stuff, and it takes people sometimes weeks or even months to actually hone in on that idea we're spreading, but find what you think it is and start working on it. And if it changes along the way, great. But then I think that the big thing to do next is to say, okay, well, I'm working on a keynote. So I'm going to, here's my origin story, and here's my one idea we're spreading. Now, what's everything else that I could possibly want to say in this keynote? And write one idea or one thought or one story or one point per sticky note, right? Like I've got a lot of these because I do this all the time, right? One idea per sticky note, and stick those up all over a wall. And this is what Mike and I do, Mike Michalowicz, when we work together. Put it all on a wall, get everything out that you think could be part of that speech, and then give it a little while, marinate with it, and then curate that. And what I mean by that is pull all the good things, the absolute must-haves, out of that group of stickies and put it on a different part of the wall.
Okay.
And then you'll end up with some stuff left over here because it didn't make the cut, right? Save that, because that might be another keynote for another time. But now we've got the things we know have to be in this keynote, and you can start to rearrange them and put them in an order that's interesting and takes people on a journey and goes through some ups and downs and things. And then once you've done that, now you've got a pretty good outline of your keynote.
So you just mentioned the word journey. A keynote should be a journey for the listener. right? For the audience. Am I
Okay, I'm going to
track here?
You are absolutely right.
And does it have to be a chronological journey, or explain to me what kind of journey it could be, or different kinds of journeys?
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, and mostly people don't like. It's a weird question, so I don't expect you to answer it, but let's just try. Put on your Stephen Hawking hat, the physicist, right? And I'm going to ask you, in what order does life happen?
Wow, I feel like I should be going to quantum string theory or something.
But you know
I
what?
would
You
say
just said it.
ha-
Yeah.
it. Well, I mean, for me, I think my life right happens in chronological order, but
Yes.
but I also know that when I go see a movie, for example, and that's why I was asking, sometimes they'll start with something and then they go, and you're like, what just happened? And then they go back in time and then they go forward in time. And that adds to the interest. Can you
So,
also do that in a keynote, or do you always just go forward?
well, so here's the thing, right? Since life happens in chronological order, what do you think the most boring order to tell any story in might be?
You know, I should have known you were going to bring this around. Chronological
Chronological order. Yeah.
Right.
Right. So, yes, that's, one of the things that really surprised me when I started deeply getting into my public speaking and understanding it and crafting the trainings and things like that is just the intense power of structuring things. Like a speech's structure will absolutely make or break the speech. Like that is a huge component. And if it's not structured right, it will not work. And that same speech structured a little differently can blow the roof off. Right. So there's a thing that the ancient Greeks knew, is an ancient Greek secret, and the Latin name is in medias res, which means into the middle things. And so that's where you start in the middle of the story. And I don't mean the exact middle. I mean, anywhere that's not the absolute beginning or the absolute ending could count as the middle. And what you're looking for is a moment of great stress or anxiety or uncertainty. You want to create suspense, right? And you bring us into that moment, you explain it, you have us feel it, and then you don't resolve it yet. And then you can go back and catch us up to how you got to that moment, right? It wasn't always like this. I remember, blah, 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 blah. And then you get us up to that moment. Now we're back in the moment. And then you can tell us what happened and what you did and the transformation and then all the stuff that came from that. And that's a way more interesting way to unveil your story than just, I was born a young child, and then I went to grade school and then I went to junior high. And
you're going, so does everyone, right? It's all right. So the sequencing starts in the middle. And I've noticed, and I don't know if speakers do this, I was just thinking about a Steve Martin masterclass where comedy is circular, right? You set up something and then you tell the story and then you come back to it and you get this revelation.
Yeah.
Are keynotes like that you're, or similar, where you, like you said, you have this problem, the suspense, and then you come full circle and resolve it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that every keynote has to be that way, but that is a great technique that, and I always tell people, if you've got a great opening, you already automatically have a great closing. You might close differently, but if you've got a great opening, you can refer to the great opening in the closing and it'll feel like just tying the bow on it, right?
That's I never thought about that, but you're right. You bring the circle, and it's
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Okay, you're probably going to need to guide me a bit now because I've never written a keynote. What is some more of the process? I know you said you're going to do the Post-it notes. You're going to put the ideas up. How do you start creating the meat? And how important are stories versus facts? if that.
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Okay, so in a keynote, you maybe have 3 major points you can actually make, right? And Craig Valentine, who's just a hero of mine, and I've worked with him a lot and learned a lot from him. He says, if you shove your information in, you shove your audience out. So you don't want to overload it with information. So to think about that keynote and look through all those stickies and go, okay, well, what are the 3, maybe 4 major points I'm going to make in this? And what order should I make them in? Right? Because there's probably a really clear, better order to do that in. And then I think it's time to remember what Les Brown taught me, which is never tell a story without a point. Like, why would you do that? And never make a point without a story. So you got these 3 or 4 points you want to make. Okay, what's the story for each of those points, right? And so that's really, really important.
And what can a story be? Is this a personal experience? Is this a case study?
Well,
Stories come from.
I think that a lot, especially for keynote speakers, I think it's really important to have some personal stories, right? Like that you went through an experience, and any story that you have experienced or heard in your life that touched you and made a difference for you, that is a story you can tell. Right. So if you've, like Mike does a lot, he'll tell a lot of other people's stories in his books and his keynotes. And I'm always encouraging him to make sure that he's in there too. But that story about the group that did this and applied this technique and had great results, that's a story that will illustrate the point that works.
And what are some falling off points? So I want to get into that, where when you see these speakers who have not created these great keynotes, what are some things, because I want people in their minds, oh my goodness, I've done that. Yeah. What are you've seen or heard, or when people first come to you that you go, this is where the audience is going to leave the room or fall asleep or whatever. Like here are common things that speakers do before they've worked with you.
Yeah.
That are just these things you shouldn't do or say or whatever.
Okay, so here's some easily $10,000 coaching right now, right here. Like if all of the rest of this hasn't been worth that. What I see really, really often is people come to me with a finished keynote or a finished speech, and it is a book report. Like, here's the facts, here's what happened, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's all a book report. And I will tell that person, okay, this is a great book report, and this is how it starts, but this is not where we stop, because I want to go on the journey with you. Right? I don't want to hear the book report about this. I want to go on the journey with you, which is a big reason why you need to think about what's the story that's going to illustrate each point, and then tell that story masterfully. Bring us into it and structure it so that it's going to be interesting and impactful for us. Don't just give me a book report.
So you want to allow me, the audience, to experience emotionally what you've experienced, right?
Yeah.
This is being told. Okay.
And here's another piece that I think helps here. And this was a wake-up call to me. Keynotes are about mindset. Trainings are about skill set.
Oh,
so
wow. Like that was my $10,000 point right there. I've never heard it said so succinctly.
That's good, right?
Oh, that's beautiful. So again, mindset is a keynote. And I always see, I call it telling or teaching.
Yeah.
sort of my,
Yeah.
I say there are 5 different kinds of speakers, but there are tellers and teachers, and a teacher is somebody who gives a book report,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're a college professor, a high school teacher, like that's a teacher.
Yeah.
Give you all the facts, and you sit there and you try to stay awake,
Right.
but you've gotten all the facts. But then you have speakers who take who make you care and feel about these things and give you stories. So
Exactly. I mean, and that's kind of the difference for me between like, okay, that's a book report. You know, no harm, no foul. That's a step on the way, but this is not the final step.
right.
We need to take people on a journey. And, you know, a keynote experience is about mindset, and it needs to be an experience. What are you doing in this keynote that is going to make it feel like an experience, right? Not sitting in class getting lectured. That's not an experience.
But I think, and we're talking about keynotes, and I'll do a whole different podcast on workshops.
Yeah.
I think in workshops, you can bring your book report. Right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, but like that's training, right?
That's training, right?
That's skill set.
Yeah. Skill set versus mindset.
Yeah.
So as you keep just dropping these bombs, and I keep saying, oh, the podcast should be called Mindset Skill Set. The podcast should be called as, speech of your life. So people just start just handing you cash to John because you're getting so much value here. Okay, again, a begin. So some people should come to you, right, and take training. However, if they can't do that, or if they're just starting out, how do you reflect on yourself? Is it worthwhile for an emerging speaker to watch themselves? And if they do, what should they be looking for?
Okay, so first of all, and I remind myself of this when I'm resisting coaching, I also say it to people when I'm trying to sell coaching, right? So, but just know I use it on myself too. It's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. However, you can still do stuff that's valuable, right? So I would absolutely recommend that speakers videotape themselves, even if it's just a video thing in the back corner of the room. Like, this is not for prime time. Just get it up so that you can see yourself and hear yourself. I remember I noticed when I first started doing this, I thought I was on stage going, making these huge gestures. And when I looked at the video, I was like these teeny little, I was like, oh my gosh, right? So how it feels is different than how it looks often. But when you watch and or listen to yourself, don't watch yourself like it's you. Do a little mental jujitsu and watch it like it's a really dear friend of yours that you care about and love and respect and want to succeed. Because I think when we watch it like it's us, we get so self-critical, most of us, that it doesn't help. It just it makes it worse, So watch that critically, but not highly self-critically. Watch it like it's a dear friend.
Yeah, and I think for me, if I'm watching myself, also I'll watch it, quote unquote, with my eyes closed, right? Just to listen to what's being said. Because you're right, you're so self-critical. You look and go, oh my God, did I wear that blouse? Oh. Well, so it's like, get away from that.
I think that it's really, really good practice to watch it with the sound. And you can do this in whatever order you want, but watch it with the sound, then watch it without the sound. Are you still communicating? Yeah. Are you still communicating what you mean to be communicating with your body language and all that? And then watch it, or just listen to it, right? Close your eyes, don't watch it, listen and hear for, am I saying this in a way that really makes it land?
Okay. I love that advice. So we're going to listen. We're going to watch it, and with sound on, with sound off, all the different aspects.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Are there little things? So now I'm not going to get, you're talking about the big content, Are there little things that people shouldn't do? For example, this is just one of my personal pet peeves. Maybe it's me. When a speaker walks on stage and says, "Hello,"
Hi.
none
My name's
was
John
kids,
Bates.
but I can't hear you. Come on, everybody, say hello. As an audience member, I want to leave the room. Anybody who tells me I've got it's like, no. Your job is to entertain me, and if I'm not excited, that's your problem. Don't make me work. That's one of my pet peeves is, again, speakers who do that. You're not listening. That's your problem. Right. So what are little things that speakers, and I don't see experienced speakers do that generally.
Yeah.
Usually it's newer people. What are things I should or should not do as a speaker, as a beginner? Like that makes me.
So that's one of them, right? That's one of them.
Yeah.
And I tell people, look, if you really want to succeed, you could be responsible for what they hear. I call that really performance. And so instead of just being responsible for what I say, I'm going to take responsibility for landing it over there. And I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make sure it lands, not just I said it. Right. So that whole, what you said is, if I'm not entertained, that's the speaker's problem. So the other thing that drives me insane is when people like, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Bates. And I walk out and say, hi, I'm John Bates. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor. Right? Like everybody's like,
say you should never introduce yourself, right? You should never have to come out and say, I'm so-and-so.
Yeah.
This is what I do, because, oh my God, they know that. That's why they're there.
Exactly. They're there to hear you. They read your bio already. Come out. I think that when you come out, my challenge to every speaker everywhere is when you walk out, have the first things that come out of your mouth be really engaging. And hi, I'm John Bates is not really engaging. Right?
Yep. Yeah. Never start with what they don't care about.
Exactly. And even if you do have to introduce yourself for some strange reason, come out, say something exciting, tell a little short intro to the story you're going to tell, and then say, my name's John Bates. I'm the founder of Executive Speaking Success, and that morning was one of the most difficult mornings of my life as I walk, and now we're back into the story.
Right.
But don't
the
start.
First thing was for them.
Exactly. Right.
First thing is for them. Okay.
Exactly. Let's see. What are some of the other things?
Well, again, this is another one from me. And I find some beginner speakers talk about what they're going to talk about before they talk about it.
Well, look, everybody gets taught that. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them, right?
Yeah.
That's not a keynote.
Again, that's teaching. That's a workshop,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Not a keynote, right?
No, man, come out and drag me into it and take me on the journey, and don't let me even have the possibility of missing what you're telling me and all of that kind of stuff, right? And that whole tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. That is not high level keynotes. That's not TED Talks. There's not time in a TED Talk. Plus no. Let's not do that.
Talking. And you've got to entertain. You've got to bring it out. Okay, so that's another pet peeve. What else you got for me? What else?
So the other big thing, if something goes wrong, or if you mess up, or the tech doesn't work, remember mirror neurons, right? You're on stage, so the audience is going to be mirroring you. If you get upset and flustered and everything, that's how they're all going to feel. But if you laugh it off and you just, okay, well, let's see what happened. How can we fix this, right? And you have some fun with it, it's going to feel fun to them. And sometimes people even think you did that on purpose. Right? So
you worked with Freddie Ravel, didn't you? I think you
introduced
him.
Yeah.
Interesting. In his sizzle reel is a mistake. On purpose. And what is it? Some guy's fixing his microphone. And as he's fixing the microphone, Freddie is walking on stage and says, and if you can do this while there's a guy working on your microphone, man, you're fantastic. Go, right?
Yeah, right. And it's fun. Yeah.
And it was such a fun moment that he put it in a sizzle reel, and it was a mistake.
Yes. Yeah.
He was on.
There you go. So it's absolutely that. So, and I think that when we're nervous and we want to look good and we care about what they think about us, it's real tempting if something goes wrong to get mad, but that doesn't help. It doesn't help.
Right. Okay. How important is practice?
Okay, this is the part that I resisted for a long time because I was good, like I was already good. And
To practice.
yeah, right. And I mean, and Lee, if I practiced, it would seem canned and robotic, right? And I already know this stuff, and I'm good at winging it, right? I all through high school, I won all the contests I ever entered, first, second, or third, at winging it, right? Extemporaneous speaking and stuff. So I'm good at this, right? And besides that, it takes less time, right? Okay. When I went to TED, what I learned is that every one of those speakers has been practicing for 6 months to a year, at least. Then my friend who used to work with Steve Jobs very closely on all those speeches that he gave, Steve Jobs, the natural communicator. Okay, well, after they created the talks, which took a long time, after they perfected the content, Steve would practice for an hour for every minute he was going to be on stage.
Wow. That's even more practice than I thought you were going to say, but yes.
Like, you'd be pretty good too, right? Like, it's not natural, right? We just call it natural so we don't have to work as hard as he did.
But yes, I am violently agreeing with you because I've actually had some coaches say, oh, but you don't want to practice. You don't want to look fake. You don't want to look stiff. But I feel that if you look stiff, you haven't practiced enough.
That is exactly what I realized. Like, I found that there's this place that you get to where you practice so much it looks like you practiced. And that's not the goal.
In knots.
I call that the valley of awkwardness. And the way you get across the valley of awkwardness is more practice. Till you've practiced so much, it looks like you didn't practice. And I guarantee you that everybody that you've ever watched who looks like they didn't practice but is on those global stages crushing it, they practiced so much that it looks like they didn't practice.
I love so much that you said that. Again, violently agreeing. Practice, practice.
Well, I mean, and listen, I had that kind of ego thing for a while. Like, I thought I was already good and I didn't want to put that much effort in. And I just had never practiced enough that it didn't look like I practiced. So my experience with practice was always, oh, it makes me look stiff. It's because I didn't practice enough.
Valley of awkwardness.
I was stuck in the valley of awkwardness for a long time. Yeah.
And I know, and the thing is, you can wreck your reputation by not practicing. I mean, my experience, I had one speaker who now granted, she was very new.
Yep.
This is really what she wanted to do. And I did find an opportunity for her. It was not not huge, but pretty good. Like, it would have been a really good opportunity. And I kept, for the months before, have you practiced? Are you practicing? Are you working on it? Yes. Yeah. She gets on stage. It's a 90-minute slot. And after 20 minutes, she goes, thank you. And so I say, what happened?
Ouch.
She goes, oh, I thought it was going to be longer. I go, how many times did you practice it that you didn't realize the difference between 20 minutes and
90 minutes? Yeah.
So not only did she, the talk bombed. I had to sell my soul to stay with that client, but I never placed her again. I said, for a lovely woman, I will never place you again because, not just because you didn't practice, but because you did not realize that you didn't practice.
Yeah.
It's one thing to work really hard and make a mistake. It's another thing to be so sure that you don't have to try, right, that you try to fake it and you bomb and
Yep.
I never replace them again. So,
Yep.
so what I'm saying to you speakers out there who are emerging is, obviously you need to practice, but you need to understand the impact of not doing that.
Yeah.
Because one of the most things to an event planner, other than the content, the presentation, the people in the seats getting butts, having them thrilled, is the timing. If you leave that stage early, they have
Or stay too long.
right, and it's empty, or they can't get you off, and now you're impacting. But you can't do that without practice.
Yeah. No, absolutely. God, there was something that went through my mind I really wanted to share, and then I zoned it. But that whole thing of practice and be like, so here's the thing. Here's what I was going to say. I'm admitting a lot of things today. I used to think,
pulling this out.
yeah, I used to think I was the big deal because I was the speaker, right? And they would fly me in, they'd pick me up at the airport, they'd pay me money, everybody would sit there and listen to me. And then it dawned on me that I make absolutely no difference without the generosity of their listening. I've done this stuff when no one's listening, and it makes zero difference, right? And then I started to think about how much time I consume, right? Like I don't remember the math, but I just spoke in India to 750,000 people for 3 minutes. That's a really short talk, right? But when you multiply 3 minutes across 750,000 lifetimes, that's a lot of minutes. And then you divide by 60 to get hours, and it's in the like tens of thousands or something. Like I've done the equation before. I just consumed that much human life with my 3-minute speech. Right. And so as I started to let all that sink in, like I'm consuming a lot of resources. I better be worth that or I'm not getting invited back yet again. Right. And if they don't listen, if they weren't in the room, I wouldn't be doing this. Like none of this would matter. Right. So I think that prima donna speakers, I want to throw up on their shoes. Because the person who got all those people in the room, the person who invited them to come speak, the person that's out to let them collaborate in making a difference, like that's the hero.
It really is. And you're making such a good image of how important what you're doing is and why the effort matters, right? You're impacting so many people.
Yes.
All right. So I love all these truth bombs you're dropping. So I just want to make sure that everyone today who's listening obviously they're leaving with tons of value. You gave so many good things today. But
for you, Lee, for you. Thank you for everything you've done for me too.
And I'm going to drag listening to everything you've told me today. I already have a whole nother podcast I want to do with you. Probably, and I'm telling let's get everybody guilted John into this, okay? That he needs to come back and talk about the TED and TEDx experience, how to prepare for that, how to get on a TEDx stage. I think that's our next podcast.
I would be happy to do that.
Yay. But this one, I think we've done a lot for people to get started on their keynote. Talk about emotional journey, talking about laying things out. How I want to wrap up with the wrap up. How does a speaker leave the stage? Again, my pet peeve is, any questions? Anybody have any questions? I feel like that just deflates the room.
Yeah.
Is there another way? Like, how should you leave the stage?
Here's a few things. First one is never end on Q&A. Doesn't mean don't do it, just means never end on Q&A. When you have a speech and they want you to do Q&A, say, okay, great. I would be super happy. Let's do 10 minutes, but then I need another 5 minutes at the very end to just send people out. And then you do that highly well-crafted, awesome ending after Q&A, right? Because like I've been in those situations where I ended on QA and the last question was something along the lines of, have you ever had monkeys fly out of your butt? And I'm like, and that's how everybody leaves, right? Like, good, thanks for coming, everybody. So have that great ending after the Q&A. That's one thing. Then the second thing is, I do a thing called the compliment experiment. And the bottom line of that is that we typically brush compliments off, knock them into the dirt, return them. Oh, you look great. Oh, you look great too. Right? Like we never let people's in, right? We never let their acknowledgement in. And as a speaker, holy crap, they just listen to you for an hour or more. And then you can't stand there for 30 seconds and accept their applause. Shame on you, right? Like when you say thank you very much at the end, stand there for a minute and smile and look at them and acknowledge them and say thank you, thank you, right? And you remember Dave Carroll? Well, he called me up and he was like, when we worked together a long time ago, he called me up. He's, oh, John, dude, your training's already working. Like, oh my God. Right. And I was like, what happened? And he said, well, I went to do this speech for a bunch of travel agents and my friend got me in. And at the end of the speech, I did that thing you told me, right? I stood there for a beat or two longer than I felt comfortable for. Instead of just running off, I accepted their applause. And when they noticed that I was paying attention to them, they leaped to their feet and I got this long, rousing standing ovation, which is super awesome because my friend talked his boss into paying me more than they usually pay. So for me to get a standing ovation was a validation of that. And it was a big deal. So thank you, And I was like, yeah.
But you're right. I didn't even think about that aspect, that it's your ovation is important to the event planner.
Yeah.
It's validation of their hard-earned money.
Yeah.
So I love that. So stay for the ovation. How do you end it verbally, right? Do you just say good night? Do you wrap with some wisdom, some truth bomb? Is there any sort of how do you sort of plan for that ending?
Well, I think there are a lot of ways, right? To end your speech, you can end by bringing back the thing you opened with and wrapping it up in a nice bow. That way you could end a lot of times I'll end because I'm training people on deep principles of human neurobiology. And so at the end, I will use that quote by Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I wonder if that sounds different to you now than it would have at the beginning of our time together, right? That's not my keynote, but that's my training.
Right.
But it's a great quote. It's really relevant, right? It's a great way to send people out. So there's, you can quote, you can bring back the beginning. But I think that whatever you do, remember that how you close it is what they're going to remember, right? You remember the engine and you remember the caboose on a train, right? And the caboose, as it goes off, right? If it's beautiful red with that brass trim and all that, people will remember that. But you've got to think about making it memorable and send them out with that thing that you want them vibing with and the feeling that you want them to have as they leave. And if you think about that, you'll be ahead of a whole bunch of speakers who just kind of got to the end and said something and stopped.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap this with what you're just saying. What would you like to leave the listeners of this podcast with? If they need to leave with one thing, what should they be leaving with?
You have the opportunity to make a huge difference. And if you are someone who's already willing to take the risk that it is to do public speaking, because I mean, look what happens to public speakers, right? Jesus, Joan of Arc, Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, Socrates. It's dangerous, right? But you have a message that matters to you more than your fear. That's called courage. So if you have the courage to go out and share your message already, I would just highly encourage you to honor yourself and honor your message by really crafting your speech and practicing it and making that thing that you bring out to the world extremely worthwhile and well done. And, you know, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but like the world is not as forgiving as it used to be because everything's getting recorded, right? And everybody's in touch with everybody else. Like these meeting planners know each other, right? So if you totally blow it, word's going to get out, you know? So to make if you're at that really early stage, make it really good. Make sure it's really good before you go out and do it. Practice it for friends, practice it for family, do it in low danger settings, right? And then make sure that when you go out and do it for real, it's going to be really awesome. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Perfect is not it. Authentic, excellent, clearly you practice, clearly you've got a great message. That's what matters. So do yourself and your message that honor.
Thank you. All right. So thank you, John Bates. I'm gonna leave it there because that's a great place to leave it. Go be wonderful, right? Thanks.
Go be wonderful.
I'm gonna have you on again soon. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Lee.
And hopefully everybody will come back to the next episode of Path to the Main Stage podcast.
Thanks for listening to Path to the Main Stage. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And for full video episodes, check out YouTube. If you want to be a successful speaker, you need to make it happen. My co-hosts and I are here to help guide you. But if you need more help, please check out pathtothemainstage.com where we can connect. And until next time, keep sharing your voice, keep showing up, and keep taking your path to the main stage.